and let us all do what we can to build a better future.
But let's go to our first video of President Biden talking about how he's not giving up the fight on the epidemic of gun violence.
I just returned from an important trip, the military will understand, to Europe, the NATO meeting. We're relying on what we can do to rally the free world to defend freedom. Before I left for Europe, I signed a law, the first real gun safety law in 30 years. And things will get better still, but not without more hard work together. You all heard what happened. You all heard what happened today. But each day we're reminded there's nothing guaranteed about our democracy, nothing guaranteed about our way of life. We have to fight for it, defend it, and earn it by voting. To refine, evolve, and extend the calling of America to move forward boldly and unafraid. And this day reminds us of what brought us together long ago, what binds us still, and at our best, what we strive for. It's we the people, not a hollow phrase in America, we the people, doing all we can to ensure that the idea of America, the cause of freedom and justice and equality, does more than survive the divisions of our time, but that it shines like the sun to light up the future of our world.
Blah, 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 blah. That's the platitudes. The platitudes of Joe Biden. Let me share with our audience what that the bipartisan the gun reform bill was that he is referencing. He recently signed the first major bipartisan gun reform legislation in almost 30 years into law, which includes actions that will save lives. But there is much more work to do. Why? Why is there much more work to do? It's been 2 decades since Columbine. Jag off. The phrase we use in Chicago. And what more work is there to do? Uvalde. Every other month, every other week, it seems that we are seeing another mass shooting. There's much more work to do, and I'm not going to give up fighting the epidemic of gun violence, Biden said in his statement. A bipartisan group of senators led by Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut and Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas crafted the law, which includes millions of dollars for mental health services, school security, and crisis intervention programs. It also provides $750 million in funding for states to implement red flag laws, which generally allow law enforcement to temporarily seize guns from people who are a threat to themselves or others while enhancing background checks for younger gun buyers. That's a really interesting point because I don't know how many of our viewers have dived down the rabbit hole to see what I'm not going to call him the shooter, the killer of Highland Park, the mass killer of Highland Park, what his social media looked like. He had a YouTube channel. He had a Facebook page. He had a Twitter page. He was literally telegraphing the public what was going on in his mind and what he was going to do. And what's even more frightening about this is that when I saw his Facebook page before they pulled it, he had about 500 friends following him. Now, before they pulled down his YouTube channel, he had a significant number of followers and viewers. Sadly, I don't remember the number. I was actually trying to do screen grabs of everything before they pulled his YouTube channel down. But I did archive a lot of his videos, and you can find his videos archived on several other social media sites. There are other channels that are showing what we saw on his social media. So when we see here, the law, they want to implement red flag laws. Why weren't red flag laws implemented 20 years ago when we found out that the Columbine shooters were kind of telegraphing what they were going to do? I mean, people knew that those kids were certainly some kind of a threat or a danger. It's taken 20 years to now implement these laws. I'm not sure how soon they're going to be implemented, but geez, a month too late from when did Biden sign this here?
Oh, actually, I think he just signed it very recently. Like,
Yeah.
I think just before the 4th of July,
Right.
either on a Friday or he did it on the 4th of July, maybe something along those lines. But yes, I know that this was very, very recently because of what happened in Uvalde.
Right.
But you hit it right on the nail when you say that Columbine happened 2 decades ago. It happened before the release of, I remember significantly, it was 1999. Biggest holiday movie that was going to come out that year was going to be the Star Wars movie, right? The new Star Wars movie. And when I heard the tragedy of what happened, all I can think about, and this was 20 years ago, I was thinking those kids are not going to see this movie now. But I was under the impression that something is going to get done. This was so terrible that something's going to get done.
And do you want to know why?
20 years later?
I'll tell you why. While Biden and many leading Democrats sought a federal assault weapons ban, which was in place from 94 to 2004, Republicans resisted the restoration of such a law, arguing that it would violate the Second Amendment. Here's a thought, and I've talked about this with Kit on several shows prior. Sorry, guys, the Second Amendment might give you the right to a weapon, although it's actually pretty clear in the language it's in relation to forming militias. Directed militias. The Second Amendment does not give you the right to ammunition. Period. And if you're going to argue the Second Amendment gives you the right to ammunition to go along with those arms, would those arguing for the free flow of guns claim that the Second Amendment also allows them to right to, missiles, rocket launchers, tanks? The Second Amendment was specific to the purpose of forming a militia to rise up against a tyrannical government.
Yeah. And also, let's also be very, very clear. Back then, they only had what they considered to be arms.
Muskets?
A musket. I mean,
and
essentially,
pistols.
they were describing something that they couldn't describe even if they wanted to in terms of what if the Constitution had the word missiles in it? What if the Constitution had the word...
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Bullets, like stuff like that.
The Second Amendment was drafted to basically allow those that were at the lead of the American Revolution would have the means to rise up against another tyrannical government later.
Right.
So I'm going to ask everybody watching, start hashtagging and sharing this on your social media. If our legislators and our elected representatives are not going to stand up against the NRA and the gun rights lobbyists, start spreading the hashtag regulate ammunition. Hashtag regulate ammunition. I want to get this going on social media. I mentioned it on a previous show with Kit. Lawyers will figure out how to twist themselves into pretzels to get something passed. I think in this case, given the fact that ammunition is not afforded by the Second Amendment, if we start forcing our elected officials to look into regulating ammunition, and what does that mean? Background. You know what? Let everybody who wants a gun run around with a gun feeling tough let me also say, okay, for what happened yesterday in Highland Park, there were police involved in that parade who were armed. For anybody arguing that, you got to let everybody have the right to bear arms because they could have taken that guy. Nobody took him out.
Yeah.
It was mass chaos. The police were on the ground. They didn't know where he was to take him out. When you afford maniacs the right to semi-automatic paramilitary weapons, and that's what this was. They have not yet identified this as an AR-15.
No. They said that it was a high-fire rifle that was similar to an AK-15. I don't know what that looks like, but it's got to look like a horrible piece of machinery.
We heard the shots in the video that were taken at the parade. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? Let me also parse myself. I've said also in the past, I don't like guns. If you're a homeowner and you feel you want to have a rifle for hunting or a handgun for home security and you pass background checks and you go through the proper training, fine. You do not need AR-15s and semi-automatic weapons, period. The fact that this kid got at 21 years old, legally in the state of Illinois.
In Illinois. And
multiple weapons.
Look, I hate to say this, okay? The kid is 21 years old. He did something that I can never imagine myself doing, which is he went and he bought a gun, which means that he purposely wanted to go do it. I remember wanting to get a car once, and that was a big deal for me. It would have been a bigger deal if I had the desire to go get a gun, because I hate to tell you this, I know the difference between a car and a gun, even though both of them can be used as a lethal weapon. But I know the difference enough. And yet this kid was going to do this because of what he wanted to do, which is to kill people.
And nobody who may have had a gun on the street there, which they didn't, would have been able to make any difference. By allowing paramilitary semi-automatic weapons to be protected under this Second Amendment, you are basically giving free rein to those who are going to terrorize the rest of us, who are not going to go out and get an AR-15 or any other kind of a weapon, or have any other kind of concern outside of maybe protecting our homes or sports hunting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to our next story. Well, it's not really a story. It's more of an irreverent commentary on the situation. This comes to us from The Onion. Faze, can you bring that one up?
Wait, The Onion, the actual, like, the parody Onion?
Yeah.
Really? The
Onion
newspaper that used to have headlines like, "We made it to the moon," and they had the transcripts of Armstrong just cursing how great it was to be on the moon. Like that kind of stuff? I
find, sadly, The Onion actually reflects logic and reason more than regular news does. But can you pop that one up, Faze? Here we go.
No.
And I'll read from it. The Onion reports. I mean, I think that they've recycled I believe they've recycled this editorial. They've just changed the title for wherever a mass shooting happens. There's no way to prevent this, says the only nation where this regularly happens.
That literally is a headline that the whole world would accept if that was a legitimate quote from a major newspaper.
Yeah, let me go into the quote. In the Highland Park, Illinois, in the hours following a violent rampage in which a lone attacker killed at least 6 individuals and injured more than 24 at a 4th of July parade, citizens living in the only country where this kind of mass killing routinely occurs reportedly concluded Monday that there was no way to prevent this massacre from taking place. This was a terrible tragedy, but sometimes these things just happen and there's nothing anyone can do to stop them, said North Carolina resident Faye Perkins, echoing sentiments expressed by tens of millions of individuals who reside in a nation where over half of the world's deadliest mass shootings have occurred in the past 50 years and whose citizens are 20 times more likely to die of gun violence than those of other developed nations. It's a shame, but what can we do? Mm-hmm. There really wasn't anything that was going to keep shooters like this from snapping and killing a lot of people if that's what they really wanted. At press time, residents of the only economically advanced nation in the world, where roughly 2 mass shootings have occurred every month for the past 8 years, were referring to themselves and their situation as helpless. Let me also mention, while I was combing through the news last night to follow all the updates on Bobby Cremo, the Highland Park killer, it was shared with me in the Slack for Chicago Corner. I think it was by Ed or Kit, that there was another mass shooting overnight somewhere else, and I don't remember where it was. I didn't look to see where it was because it's just you can't keep track anymore.
Really, honestly?
There was an overnight.
I've only been hearing about this one.
This was the one that kind of took precedence in the news. But yeah, I mean, it's happening everywhere so much. Now, let me also share something that I pulled up.
Well, it's kind of sad that we're not keeping score as to which shooting is more prominent from the one previously or the one after. Yeah. Uvalde sort of unfortunately, sort of put the others in the back burner, even though those were just as worse. But now, are we actually now saying, oh, well, don't worry about it in a couple of weeks, like The Onion is saying? Oh, it's going to be another, it's going to be even worse.
In the next couple of days. A very good friend of mine on social media, Mars Messina, who I've interviewed on Chicago Corner, shared this. Uvalde, AR-15. Buffalo, AR-15. Boulder, AR-15. Orlando, AR-15. Parkland, AR-15. Las Vegas, Aurora, Colorado, Sandy Hook, Waffle House, San Bernardino, Midland, Odessa, Poway Synagogue, Sutherland Springs, Tree of Life Synagogue, Highland Park 4th of July Parade. The exact make and model of the firearm has not been revealed, but officials said it was a high-powered long gun and that the shooter sprayed the scene with bullets. All of those other locations of mass shootings were AR-15s. If only we could find a common denominator.
Could it be an AR-15, you think? I don't know.
I'm not going to be surprised if they do announce that that's what it was.
I honestly hate the fact that this is the level of chaos in the mindset of...
It's absurd.
Yes,
we've reached a level of absurdity when you have The Onion making a salient point that our regular media organizations can't point to the ridiculousness.
But do you see the reaction that you and I are having? We literally are shaking our heads. We're laughing because it's kind of like it's like the Chevy Chase, what else can I do? It's like, and then he's panicking because no matter how hard he tries, it's always going to be difficult to get anything to work properly, and that includes the law.
Well, I lay this at the feet of our elected representatives and our legislators who are slaves to the NRA and the gun industry.
And we are the victims.
And they don't care about us. And
That's
one more
right.
time, handguns, rifles, background checks, mental health checks, fine. AR-15s, enough is enough. Hashtag regulate ammunition.
Not only that, but it's also we're everyone and every politician, and including Biden. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for Biden. But we all sound like a broken record.
We are a broken record.
Well, thoughts and prayers, and we have to continue fighting, and we have to continue.
Thoughts and prayers.
Here's the thing.
Can I share something really quickly?
Sure,
in
please.
that regard?
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody, if I offend anybody, but with the thoughts and the prayers, pray in one hand, shit in the other. See which one fills up first.
Oh my God.
The prayers haven't been doing a goddamn thing for the past several decades with the gun violence. Enough with the thoughts. And Tammy Duckworth came out with the thoughts and prayers. The mayor of Highland Park came out to talk about the different churches and stuff that we're going to get together. And that's fine. I mean, you know what? In the wake of the tragedy, certainly people need a place to come together. Yeah. But when you are elected officials, their go-to is thoughts and prayers. Enough is enough.
Well, if I could also bring up another point about Biden, and that is that Biden, the guy retired. The guy finished his political career, and then he had to come back in order to try and save as much of the country as he could.
Well,
and
the thing is, back. He was basically the Democratic Party,
exactly.
Basically, he's our puppet.
But you see, that was their intention. It was kind of like, we have to put an old man that can reassure them, and we can control. All right, fine then. The man is just an ancient
Feed
person.
his ego to do it.
And I hate the idea, but the truth is this: we have a lot of old politicians who have never left their political careers. They should have made way for younger politicians who actually probably are more better grips of this time and era than the old folks that unfortunately are running this country.
To have a sense of what's happening.
Exactly.
In the social zeitgeist. Young
Biden
people's issues, middle-class people's issues.
He is not equipped to deal with this. I mean, if
he's a dinosaur.
Unfortunately, he's an old man that when they come to him and they say, Mr. President, another massacre, he's going to be like, oh, that's terrible. And he knows there's nothing he can do about it.
Oh, no, he knows there's something. Art.
Oh, no.
He could do a lot with the swipe of a pen, but his handlers and those around him. And look, I don't think he wants to do anything anyway.
No, that's exactly true. Because you see, we had 20 years since Columbine to do something about this. Nothing was ever done. And even this signing, like in the last 30 years, so I finally signed this piece of paper. Too late. I'm sorry, dude. Do you understand how many people have died before you signed that piece of paper?
And by the time that piece of paper he signed is going to go into effect with the red flag laws, we're probably going to have seen at least another half dozen mass shootings.
And if there is another law that actually predominantly changes the course of gun control in this country, it's going to be decades from now. It's not going to be. It's going to be decades from now, and within those decades,
more people will be killed.
Yes.